Now we are moving on to session 5, which is called Staying Connected Through the J Curves of Parenting. This time I'd like you to take a look at the participant program workbook. Page 28 and 29 there's quite a bit of text, as you'll see here. There's a lot of reading. You're going to have, hopefully, actually between sessions, you might ask your participants, send them an email or a text or something, asking them to read through that before they arrive for their 5th session. There is a lot of material here, and you obviously don't want to read this to the folks. You're going to be having a discussion about it, but what I would suggest is that you go through this, read it, and maybe highlight some of the things that you want to make sure you point out in your discussion. So again, everything is the same as in the other sessions. You're going to go to your facilitator guide, and you're going to read page 57 to give you the purpose and objectives, and then you're going to want to have with you page 58. But I don't have that, and I'm not going to show that to you on the screen this time because I want to show you some of the concepts that are in the teaching lesson. But like the other sessions, you do your opening, you're going to be doing some centering time, the teaching segment, and then followed by the coaching, the sharing of next steps. So again, it's the same format that you had in sessions 2, 3, 4, and now 5. So I figured you would maybe understand that by now, so we're not going to show the slide about that or even the slide of the facilitator page. Instead, we're going to be looking at this lesson. So when you get together, then you're going to start your opening. This time, we're going to move. This is talking about the staying connected, and you're kind of foreshadowing that. You're going to ask the members to think about somebody that they knew when they were young, when they were either a child or a teenager, maybe even out of high school. Somebody that had a very positive influence on them. Somebody that they really liked and respected. Somebody that they cared about. Somebody that they loved. It might not even be love, but it could be a coach or somebody like that. But somebody who they respected, because what we're doing is we're trying to set the stage for them to begin to think about the connection they have with their child. So as the welcome, you might ask them to think about somebody like that and share who that is. They might, who knows who they might say, a grandparent, a coach, somebody at their faith community that was helpful to them, who knows. Then during your centering time, you will have them think about that. And then there's a quote here in the book here. One thing I have learned from watching chimpanzees with their infants is that having a child should be fun. You might see a connection between the person that they've identified as somebody who is important to them and the fact that that person was probably caring and fun and supportive. You know, pulling out what are the characteristics of that person. How did that person treat you as a young person as you were growing up, and why were you like fond of them? What was it? How did they influence you? What about that person made you want to, perform or do well for that person, or made you want to follow the rules, or made you feel comfortable and happy? What was it about the adult? Then you're going to give them some journaling time to think about that. Now, in your booklet, it says, have them reflect on ways parenting brings happiness into their lives. I think that what I'm talking about is a little bit more helpful, and it connects to the J curve of parenting, the lesson that we're going to get to in a minute. But I would have them instead write down some of their thoughts about the person that influenced them in such a positive way. So you're kind of blending in the lesson a little bit before you get started. Then when it's time to, you want to share those ideas with people too. Have the group share who the person was that they're thinking of, what was it that was meaningful to them. And then you're moving on to the teaching segment. And you're going to want to talk to them, not read to them obviously, but talk about the idea that when children are emotionally connected in a positive way to adults, it really helps them grow, and it helps them, it influences the relationship in such a positive way. We'll have much more influence on our children if we have a positive, loving, supportive relationship than if we have, for instance, a critical, judgmental type of relationship with a child. The child does not respond in the same way to the adult. The adult has more difficulty trying to get the child to learn whatever it is they're trying to learn if they're a critical parent. And hopefully they will have seen that from the examples that they will have chosen. Then the other thing we want to talk about in this lesson is what we call the J curve. Or basically, the J curves are sort of like stressful times in the life of a parent or the life of a child or the life as a family as a whole. And so staying connected and having these positive relationships with a child is more challenging when there is something stressful going on in a life. This new school year can be very challenging for somebody, for a family. Moving, having a student get their driver's license, that's a J curve. It's in something new and some sort of change is happening within the family, and it can cause what we call a J curve. On the bottom of page 29 in their program workbook, there is a visual there of the J curve. It shows that where you start at the very beginning, when some new change is going to happen, we usually expect that it's just going to get better and better. School year will start and it'll just be nice. Child gets their driver's license, they'll have a little more independence, whatever. Child goes off to summer camp. They're excited about it. It's all going to be great. Well, that isn't reality, actually. When we try to create a change of some sort, things kind of get more challenging first. And if we stick with it, openness and growth can happen. Sometimes people will kind of give up when they're in the bottom of the J curve. We expect things to go well, and when they don't, when the hard parts of life come along, it can feel like pretty kind of like a down moment, a downtime. But that's expected. But that's when parents, when they're going through their own personal J curves, when children are going through J curves, everybody is more stressed as we're trying to make some sort of change or some change is being thrust upon us. And we might be not so nice to each other. There might be more yelling, more complaining, more resistance, that kind of thing. But we have to be aware that it isn't really the child that's the problem. It's not the adult that's the problem. The problem is that everybody is going through a J curve. And if you can name it as that, it can take away some of the stress. So, and it's also good to know that when there are big changes in a life, this is expected. This will happen. And then have the parents talk about, are they going through a J curve? Have they been through a J curve? Have their family been through it? Do they anticipate a J curve coming up? So this is the major lesson. On this page here, there are 5 bullet points here. Really good points that you might want to point out to them. One about filling the child's love tank. So that you have like a buffer when these hard times come, that can help pull you through the J curve of life. What can you do to help your child feel buoyed? What do you need to do for yourself to fill up your own love tank? Remember that discipline means to teach, which we talked about last week. It requires time and patience, but that can help when you're teaching a child how to get through a J curve. If you do lose your cool or there's some sort of damage in the relationship, take responsibility for it. It's a great model for a child to see a parent apologize or realize that you can work to help and nurture injured relationships. It's a very important life lesson. Pay attention to the good things your child does. And then think about your child as having an emotional bank account. They need money put into their accounts. They have little deposits. Because you are going to be always making withdrawals. Because you do need to, you are going to have to make some withdrawals on their account. You're going to have to, expect them to do things they don't want to do, correct them or teach them how to do things differently that they may not really be interested in. So if you have, in the meantime, also filled their bank account with kind things, you'll have a better chance of influence in your child, just like the adults they identified earlier. The other thing is you personally the things you can do to make deposits in their account are, showing them love, appreciation, affirming them for the good things that they're doing, and to realize that there are some things you must do, that they're not going to like asking them to clean up their bedroom and making sure that they take care of doing that before they go off with a friend or something like that. That's kind of a withdrawal in their mind. But if you criticize a child or disrespect or shame a child, there's no upside to that really, but it is a withdrawal. And so it's to be aware that when we do things like that, that is going to be hurting our relationship and breaking the connection. So there is a lot of material in this session 5. To talk about all this and have a really meaningful discussion is time consuming. So you may want to choose just a few of these points that I've just mentioned and figure out which ones you think with your group would be most helpful and most, your group and you know what they need. So after you've done the lesson, then you're going to go on and you've got your facilitator guide out. You'd now be moving on to page 59, where everybody does their sharing again of their next steps. It's always an important part. And then again, that's still you're going to be giving a good amount of time set aside for that everybody can share. And then you're going to do your closing, wrapping up the session. They have in their books, again, they'll be filling out pages 30 in their books. Let's see, this one, they'll be completing that and be getting it ready for next week, or else they'll do it as homework. Again, there's a note page there if they want to do some writing, taking notes of what you've talked about. That's very good. And then next week, they're going to work on the journey continues. So you're going to want to send them some sort of message throughout the week, letting them know that you're going to be moving on to session 6, and they're going to want to probably read the information on page 32 and 33 before they come to class next week. So again, have fun with session 5. I really love this session because it just seems to really get to some really important concepts about connecting with children and the J curve. You'll start hearing parents talking about using that kind of language, describing their life, and it's to me a really wonderful week. So anyway, that is session 5. You have the facilitator guide, which I have not showed you this week, but I may have done it a little differently by reminding you that the parents have a lot of really great information in their program workbooks that you'll want to make sure they are having a chance to read and absorb. Okay, that's the end of session 5. I hope you have a great time leading your group.